Welcome to Unlocked, an NAMFS podcast, Episode 9, Alignment Matters.
Welcome to Unlock, the official podcast of NAMFS, where we bring together voices from across our industry to unlock new perspectives and better ways of working together. My name is Eric Miller. I'm the Executive Director of NAMFS, and in Episode 9, we're talking with we're talking about something that defines success in every partnership: alignment. From servicers to field professionals, our ability to deliver results depends on how well we communicate, collaborate, and hold each other accountable. Because when we align our goals and expectations, we don't just improve performance, we strengthen the foundation of our entire industry. On today's episode, Alignment Matters, I'm joined by two leaders that have been on both sides of this equation and have attended the 2025 NAMFS Leadership Summit, where this topic was discussed. Go ahead and please introduce yourself. Let's start with Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bigenho. I work for Bank of Oklahoma. I'm in a risk management and business controls position. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I've been on the servicing side and I've been on the property preservation side. So I feel well versed in terms of what we're talking about today and very excited about it.
Talia?
Hi, I'm Talia Ramirez. I am the president of Spectrum Solutions. I have been in the industry for over 20 years. Like Nikki, I have been on the servicing side and where I spent a majority of my career. And then I've now been on the vendor side for about almost a year and a half, which is a little crazy. But definitely loving both sides. But I know and anyone that's NAMFS, Eric, Nikki can tell you something that I've always been passionate about is alignment. And I've always been someone who's very vocal from a partnership perspective, from a client vendor relationship. So excited to be here to discuss that today.
Well, thanks. Thank you both. Like I said, this was a topic at our 2025 Leadership Summit. And in these next couple episodes, we've taken the opportunity to kind of focus on some of the topics and bring together individuals who participated. So I guess let's start out with the first question. How can servicers and field partners better align on definitions of quality, timeliness, and completion? Obviously, there's a lot there. There's several definitions, but again, let's go ahead and start with you, Talia, if that's all right.
Sure. I think, like you said, Eric, I think it's important to make sure you are aligned on those definitions, right? Because my definition of quality could be very different from my client's definition of quality or from my vendor's definition of quality. I think timeliness is a little bit easier to define. Job being completed a little bit easier, but I think where it really gets muddy is on the quality side and what is truly quality work. Where, I've seen a lot of vendors like, but I did the job. Well, it wasn't to the standard that I wanted. Well, what is your standard, right? So I think it's important that your client and yourself set that expectation of what is quality, what timelines, how fast do you want something done? You order a renovation today, when do you want it done by? Before it gets cold, or do you want it done tomorrow? When it comes to is it completed or job completed or not. So a lot of vendors, the job's completed when they leave the house. To us, it's not completed till I get your final photos and I've signed off that it's done. So I think it's important that you level set with your client that expectation and how they define. And what you'll find is a lot of clients have different definitions. So as a vendor, you have to make sure that you understand every single one of your clients' needs, especially being on this side of the house now. You've learned that everybody wants it done differently. So I wouldn't go in there expecting or understanding, oh, this is how I've always done it. This is how I've always defined it. I think it's important, especially when you get a new client, that you have that conversation with them and that you level set on expectations for the future of the partnership.
Okay, thank you. Nikki, anything to add there?
Yeah, Talia, I completely echo what you just said, and I had similar thoughts prepared to talk about today. So I'm so excited to see that you and we haven't talked in advance of this discussion right now, but we're definitely on the same page in that regard. So I'm very excited about that. I agree. Servicers, investors, nationals, they all have different expectations of what quality means. There's a lack of standardization in our industry, unfortunately, and as we've talked about, and that impacts performance and scorecards, and it can even, unfortunately, result in some chargebacks. So I think it's critical to ensure that that disconnect is overcome, and that disconnect can be overcome, through those positive conversations. And I agree, it is going to vary based on who your client is, whether it's a servicer or a national provider. Ensuring that you're on that same page is absolutely critical so that scorecard performance reflects that same alignment of understanding, in addition to just reporting and overall performance expectations.
Well, thanks for that. I think one of the things that I see, especially as we've come out of the pandemic, and even what was the housing crisis, right, back in 2008 through 2010, is a loss of a lot of that industry knowledge. So, for example, one of the challenges that I see is, timeliness, understanding that there's a requirement to complete work from the investor within so many days, or action needs to be taken within so many days. So many of our, the field vendors and field professionals out there, they're not necessarily aware of that. And again, then you start getting into quality. One of the things that NAMFS has looked at as well is kind of defining what is done within that allowable. Using one as an example, hey, I'm going to get X number of dollars to do a sump pump replacement. Well, that's the sump pump replacement. That's not me running all brand new tubing and discharge pipe and plumbing it and making sure that the electric is there and all those kinds of things. It's very simply, hey, I've cut the old one off, use a rubber boot to connect to the new one, and we're done type situation. So I think, unfortunately, not only have the field professionals lost that knowledge, but I think some of the servicers, we would also say we've lost a lot of people. All of a sudden it was, oh, well, let's bring some people in from a different department. Maybe it was REO, maybe it was originations, and they didn't understand the servicing world. So those are really, really key. And I think you guys are exactly right. Making sure that everybody has that conversation up front is really key, especially in a day when lots of times we just like to communicate with email. We don't want to talk to each other or text or something like that. So, well, thanks for sharing. Next question: what role does transparency, kind of through data, reporting, technology, play in building trust? Nikki, did you want to start off with that one, please?
Sure. Absolutely, Eric. Thank you. I think transparency is the foundation of trust. When mortgage servicers and field service providers share real-time data, whether it's photos or progress updates in regards to a property being in conveyance condition, it takes the guesswork out of the relationship. When vendors and servicers use connected technology platforms to track work orders, this reduces delays and manual errors. It also improves transparency on work order status, timelines, and exceptions. Accurate reporting by leveraging industry technology removes ambiguity by ensuring both sides operate from the same source data. So in this manner, all entities see the same performance metrics, timelines, and completion status, which reduces disputes and builds confidence. Visibility to the same data on scorecards and accountability becomes collaborative. Technology enables that shared view, turning performance metrics into a tool for partnership and continuous improvement. So I feel like it's just mission critical to ensure that everyone is seeing the same information, the same data, and that is key to building that trust.
Talia?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. To me, transparency is honesty. If you're honest with me, I'm going to respect you so much more, even if you messed up, right? You're not on time, you're not passing where you need to pass. That honesty shows me that you care. When you're trying to hide stuff, it's never good. It's never a good thing because we're going to find it, right? You're going to realize it, and it's worse to realize it downstream in the claims process, right? Because they will find it. I ran claims I ran claims for 20 years. I know. So it's all about just be honest up front and let your clients know exactly, where you are, where you're maybe struggling. Data and reporting is important and always want to share that information. What I find is oftentimes if I ask for a report, it'd be like, well, I can't give you that. Why? It's my properties. Why can't you tell me? So especially if your client asks you for data, definitely always be transparent and give it to them. It definitely strengthens the relationship and helps them trust you more.
Yeah, I thank you. I think that's really good information, and obviously, technology is definitely making huge strides, right, from where we started, right? Polaroids, all those other
Absolutely.
kinds of things, and now, near real time. In some cases, you can get some real time stuff. I think, one of the bigger challenges that still remains, and it's not really on our side per se, as far as the individuals who are doing the work, but that top of the house and some of the challenges with some of the systems that you have to use, investor, insurer, and even then in servicer, right? I mean, I think those are real barriers to entry to try and break down for us going forward. I know NAMFS has talked a little bit to MISMO out there and trying creating some standards technology wise. So I think that would be really beneficial because you guys have both been on the servicer side, and some of the systems in order to find data is definitely not the most user friendly. Let's just leave it at that. But
Very
yeah,
true.
I think like I said, we're making some strides. I do appreciate, if you can't make the turnaround time, if you can't, or if you're running into something, being transparent and honest, like you said, is much better than saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get it done," and then inevitably you miss, and then that just
Yes.
snowballs, right? And you can't get out from underneath it. So, okay. Next question is, uh, can you guys share an example of where improved communication or a process change strengthened a client relationship? Obviously, you guys have both sides of the equation, right? It could be servicer to field professional, or it could be field professional up to a servicer. So go ahead and whichever one. Talia, let's start with you.
Sure. So I definitely have an example from being on both sides, right? As a servicer, we had vendors that were underperforming. We were, missing timelines left and right. And but no one was really, this is before I had taken over the department, no one's really talking to the vendors or having a conversation with them. We get on phone calls and they'd be like, "Do you have anything to talk about today?" And they'd be like, "No." Like, but they're literally missing every timeline there is. What do you mean we have nothing to talk about today? So that's kind of how I got involved in preservation, because I was like, hold on a second, we need to talk about this stuff. But when I started talking with them and we started going through things, we identified that there were actually obstacles in their way of completing things on time. And they were escalating things, but they weren't getting answers. And so what are you supposed to do then? Right? You have this property that's falling apart, but I don't know what to do with it. And you won't tell me what to do with it. What's going to happen? They're just going to push it and move to the next one. So when we got to talking about these properties and going through the issues and solving issues in real time, it really strengthened, because we were at odds. It
Right.
was not a good relationship. But we became friends. And these people are still my friends to this day, even being competitors. And it was just from sitting down with them, strengthening that relationship, talking to them every day, real-time decisions, vastly improved our relationship, but vastly improved the performance. Next thing you know, we were making every timeline. OA approvals were over 95%. It was, the performance was fantastic. And all we did was communicate,
Right.
right? And work together as a team. And then, on this side with my clients, there's always the opportunity to have conversations and strengthen that relationship. And out of these conversations, we've actually got additional business from them. They're like, "Oh, we didn't know you guys did that.
Fantastic.
Oh, we didn't know you provided that additional service. Oh, we have these properties. I have a chicken farm. Can you go to this chicken farm for me?" Like, sure. Never been to a chicken farm before, but I'm on my way.
That's right.
So there's things that we've talked about, and the business has expanded big time just from having those conversations with my clients and having those transparent, really conversations with my clients, to where they're like, "Oh man, this is new. Like I have never had a vendor have these conversations, at least honest conversations with us."
Right.
So it definitely has strengthened that relationship to have better trust in us to deliver what they need. And they come to us now, even if it's something that's wild and out of the ordinary. They will like, I'm trashing out a storage complex right now, right? Just wild stuff that it's like, what? New stuff is exciting. but it's all from having conversations and strengthening those relationships and getting to know each other on a personal
Cool, cool. Nikki?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tali. I was just kind of chuckling in inwardly here in regards to what you were just talking about. Because yeah, for me, the same thing. Boy, when I was on the prop pres side, the biggest changer for me was the open and honest communication. So I'm right up your alley there. I had some very difficult clients that I was dealing with back at that time, and setting just standardized calibration meetings, going through those ugly properties, those past due loans or loans that are coming up on the deadline, and trying to ensure they don't go past their conveyance time frame, and just talking it through and having, like you said, those conversations of this is where we're at and this is what we can do for you and this is how quickly we can get it done. This is, the cost involved and all of the details, and just building that relationship and seeing those loans conveying. It turned things around. It solidified the relationship that I had at the time with multiple, clients, and that was huge. It turned it from initially an adversarial relationship, as you had described, into improved turnaround times, because then they were improving work to be done. It reduced property visits, and strengthened that trust based on that ongoing, communication. So the confusion was resolved or eliminated. Accountability was there. Both, the parties felt informed and aligned. So it was a huge game changer to have that reoccurring, open, honest communication. So
And I think
I agree.
communication on the phone is so important.
Oh
Don't try
yeah,
to manage, don't try to
not,
manage by email.
not via
Don't
email.
that will never work. Like if we have clients send us stuff like that, hey, what happened here? I'm not happy with what happened. They have an issue. I always tell my leader of operations, pick up the phone and call them and talk through the property together. And usually walk away from that call happy. They're like, oh, I get it now. I understand what happened. But you can't really convey that type of message in an email. So I know no one wants to talk on the phone, but in our business, you got to pick up the phone. It's so critical and important to success.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
completely, yeah. Sorry, Eric. I was
no,
just going
no.
to say quickly, I completely agree, because email is something people are comfortable with, or sadly texting, but emails, and people can misunderstand one another via email. If it's factually based, that's one thing, but otherwise, it's very easy to misunderstand the tone or the intent via an email. So I completely agree. The way to build that relationship, that rapport, is on the telephone.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, I think that's, to the field service professional actually doing the work. Again, it's a conversation, right? I mean, so many times a national, I always talk to them, about the industry. I mean, we're all microcosms, right? A client's coming down on a national's coming down on a field service provider, right? Those types of things happen. Everybody's in the same boat. You just have to stop and realize, and then really try and explain it. And if you can't explain it to your vendor manager or whatever the term is now, I mean, try and elevate it. Try and elevate and get it to someone where, because again, that person may not be empowered. You may need to go and have a conversation with someone else. But to not have it and just get frustrated and throw your hands up in the air is just, it's no good for anybody. And worse yet, there can be consequences if you're actually, the field service provider. So those are really things that we need to just kind of be aware of. So again, like you said, talk to somebody. It's so key. Last question. If you could redesign one aspect of client expectations to better reflect field realities, what would that be? I mean, obviously, you guys are great because you have both sides of the house. So, Nikki, you want to start out?
Sure, absolutely. I feel from my vantage point, the one thing that I would redesign would be servicer and investor requirements in regards to turnaround timeframes. Expectations right now are uniform, but we know that the field isn't uniform. There are so many variables that we're dealing with today that are so different than when the timeframes were originally established. They're outdated. I know we've talked about that in significant length at the Leadership Summit and prior times as well. So what's really impactful today is those rural properties and insufficient vendor coverage because volumes are so low. So I think a new approach, whether it's, I know we've talked about flexibility, tiered approaches based on property location, property type and conditions, setting realistic benchmarks and reducing unnecessary pressure so that vendors can provide better quality and compliance and having fewer chargebacks. We just need to make it realistic for our vendors to get the work done. And we need to ensure that those are parameters that can be, resolved by having a little more flexibility in those timeframes. It's time for a change, and we need to move forward with that, with the support of, investors and insurers.
Cool. All right. Talia?
Yeah, I think it's important for them to understand that I might not be able to get out to Mexico, Missouri tomorrow, because there's not an urban metro town within 4,000 miles of Mexico, Missouri. That really is a city. I have a property in. So I think it's understanding that most of the portfolio is rural now, right? The metro, yeah, there's still metro volume, but most of the volume is rural. And I'm going to get a guy there. And I mean, on our side, I've got to get guys there within 48 hours being an FSM, and we get it done. But it's tough. And understand the windshield time that's happening for these guys. That, I send them to that one property. He's not going to be able to do anything else that day because he's going to be driving for 8 hours. So I think it's understanding that windshield time and understanding these guys do this for, like we talk about increasing allowables and paying them more. Like they don't do this for a lot of money. And so it's important to understand that how costly it is to do this, especially now being on this side of the business. I see now why it's, when I be like, come to me and they would be like, hey, I need this, here's your $800 stove. I'm like, Home Depot has that stove online for $295. I'm not paying $800 for a stove. Well, now I understand the guy has to drive to Mexico, Missouri. He has to drive to Home Depot. He has 8 hours of windshield time. There's all this that goes with it. And so I think them understanding what goes into it's not as simple as Home Depot and add a little. Them understanding that, and then understanding the realities of being in the field is so important. Going into the field, understanding what these guys do. And I know something that's really important that we talked about at NAMFS Leadership Summit was the safety. These guys put themselves in harm's way every single day.
Absolutely.
Imagine getting a piece of paper that all it has is an address on it. And you just need to go to the house. You know nothing about this house. You know nothing about this neighborhood. You think it's vacant, right? So these guys put themselves in harm's way every day. So understand if my vendor comes back and didn't do the job because he got chased off by a gun. And I'm not going to give you a picture of him getting chased off by a gun, right?
Right.
So it's things like that, just understanding the field realities, all things that I had an understanding and appreciation for being on the servicer side, but more so really, really care about now, especially, my contractors, I feel like they're part of us and I never want to put them in a certain, a bad situation. So just understanding the true realities of field services, I think would make this a lot better as well.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few, right? If you just say one, right? I think the biggest thing is, like you guys mentioned, is starting the dialogue, right? And walking through it and saying, okay, this isn't an excuse. This is a bit of a reality, right? This isn't, I want it to take longer because nobody wants it to take longer. But, like you said, whether it's unrealistic turnaround time up front, whether it's, allowables, whether it's safety, I mean, we've just got to start to have that dialogue and then start to, put, as they would say, common sense behind it. It's real easy to say, hey, 10 days. 10 days is fine. Okay, that sounds right. But like we said, I mean, we're greater than 40% now, is rural. So we're closing in on 50-50, which is a scary thought. So,
Yes.
but again, like I said, I think the dialogue is the first thing to happen. And so, we're definitely at NAMFS committed to that, and you guys are definitely helping out. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks for answering the questions. As we've heard today, alignment isn't just about shared metrics, it's about shared understanding. When servicers and partners, field partners connect through clear communication, transparency in data, realistic expectation, everyone wins, especially the communities we serve. At NAMFS, we're committed to driving that collaboration forward, helping bridge the gap between policy, process, and performance. We hope you found today's conversation valuable. And until next time, stay connected, stay aligned, and keep unlocking what's possible. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. Please be sure to subscribe to the NAMFS YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to next Wednesday when we unlock our next episode.